Hello, hello. I'm excited to see all of you today. And get our slides up. And as people are showing up for this very short hour that we know goes by very quickly, I want to invite you to share, what are you most hoping to learn today?
Instructions, run of show, and link for tonight's dinner.
What are we looking to learn? Hi. It's so good I love it when I see people I recognize, like Lisa, Tony, Steve, look, hey, Hero, how are you? Trudy, you're with us again. And it's always good to see people who are on camera with us. We want to see people. Um, so thank you for being here. So very happy that you've joined us for today for this quick hour to talk about why equity dinners, like why do this? Um, and we're just excited. We're also going to be navigating some are just a lot of different things going on. I don't know about you, but like the weather like significantly just went from like sunshine to like which we need in Georgia. Like some just, we'll just like, yes, we understand we need it, you know. Um, but I know that lately my internet's been wonky. So just to put that out there. Great to see everyone. What are you hoping? I hope you can see my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Um, what are you most hoping to learn today? So I know some of you've been to dinners, some of you've been to my dinners, some of you are already facilitators. So, but some of you might be brand new to this whole thing and love to know what you're interested in. Awesome. Love that. Love that question already. This is so good. Okay. How do we encourage people to host them? How do we, how many people? Great question so far. Love that. Part of my goal is actually to answer some of your questions and also to share a little bit of some ideas, over the years that I've learned about facilitating the dinners and what we can do to build a space for dialogue and for healing. Um, Meals create a space. We all need nourishment, so um, that's one of the ways I think about these, even when we do the dinners virtually, that there's a way in which when you participate in a dinner, there's an opportunity to feel like you're not alone. And we often need that. Um, yes, I love that. Trudy, for sure. Um, and that's really fun, Hero. So let's see what we could do. We gotta bring all these pieces in. So very cool. So I know we had a number of people who might be joining us. We're also recording. I hope we're recording. And I'm gonna go ahead and sort of launch into some of the material because I, of course, had this very ambitious plan for what to cover today. And part of that is because I've just been doing this for so long, and I really think it's important to kind of stop and go back and talk about where some of the roots are a little bit, because I don't know that people necessarily know that, right? So that's a piece. So welcome. For anyone here who does not know who I am, I'm Dr. Dietra Hawkins, um, founder and CEO of Both and Partners. And I've been helping to lead dinner events for over 20 years. So today in this webinar, I want to talk about like how the dinners can work to break down barriers and build some bridges. Um, give you a couple of tips for how we tap into the wisdom in the room, whoever is there. and shares some just practical things that we can do in terms of, really converting people who are brave enough to show up to also be brave enough to consider some other roles. And part of that is actually just knowing that people have done so, that tends to be one of the things that we should pay attention to. So I wanted to start by answering a couple of questions. We did a quick survey of some folks and asked them, what are some questions you want some answers to, in addition to the ones you just put in the chat? So first was, why do we even call this an equity dinner? So the dinners are built on, or that I'm referring to, are rooted in what is called the Chicago dinner model. And it was started back in the 90s with the Human Relations Foundation by a man named Clarence Wood. We are sadly missing him. He just transitioned in March of this year. And part of that story, I'll be sharing a little bit more about that later today, was just recognizing that, there's something about a dinner and a dinner party that helps people have a conversation that trainings don't necessarily do and workshops don't necessarily do. And so the dinner models really came out of that understanding and that lived experience. And so equity dinner, Cleveland dinner, Drexel dinner, equitable dinners, like the whole point is whatever you want to put on the front is fine. And the dinner is the goal, and it's about having a party. So the next question is, what do you bring? Well, the main thing is you bring yourself. And what I love about the dinner model, the Chicago dinner model, is that it's actually flexible. So you can have a potluck dinner, or you can have it be catered to the nines. There are so many different flexibilities on how you do a dinner. It's basically how you plan any kind of other dinner party. And you have the part of it being around a conversation. And then, of course, you're also selecting what that conversation can be. Another question often raised, will people be confrontational? I think this is a concern that many people will have, like, am I going to feel uncomfortable? I think in general, we have to first just be grateful when people do get out of their comfort zone, because you're not in control, right? When you go to a dinner party or to an event, people can be confrontational, but the design of the dinner, by having a facilitator and a host, is just like if someone got confrontational at your own dinner party, how would you respond? Okay. So this should be, and one of the things that's rooted in the dinner experience is that this is supposed to be about what we do every day. And in some ways, I think we actually need to practice better in our day-to-day how we interrupt someone if they're being rude, or if it's not acceptable, if that behavior is offensive to others, to just be able to say, whoa, right? Let's take a moment. Maybe we need to go get some dessert, right? All of these different things that we would do anyway, in any other setting. So it's not any different than that, other than the fact that you are having a very, focused conversation. So how much does it cost? I think in general, most dinner events have typically been free for the participants, but this is also something that ranges. As an organization with Both And Partners, we have been supporting people doing dinner events, and we have a package for that. So if you're interested in support around that, we are happy to help you. But in general, I think, most of the time people are able to attend for free. And I think as we build these pieces out, there's parts in terms of getting prepared, but overall, usually the cost is fairly low. So, I mean, I don't know how many people pay to go to a party. Like they might go to it, but I'm just, again, it's supposed to be designed like any other kind of dinner party. Will other people like me be there? So I hear this question and I sort of hear the idea or a refrain, are we preaching to the choir? And what I always say about this is that you have some control over who you invite for the dinner. And whether there are people who think like you or not, like I think it can be both. And that oftentimes we think we're all on the same page, but we haven't shared our stories together to actually know. But for the most part, yes, you're going to see people there who have an agenda, who are interested in seeing some kind of change, who have been invited, right? And who are like members of the community. So people like you, yes, I think so. But also that if you're concerned about, are we preaching to the choir, I like to make sure that people know we still need to rehearse and that there's nothing wrong with that. And that oftentimes we haven't had enough of our own conversations to see each other. Okay. So last question is, why have these events? And actually, I thought, well, this is what the presentation is about, right? Like, why do we even want to have these events? Well, one of the things that we know right now in our society is that people are really lonely. Okay. So, a report just this year in January, 1 in 3 Americans feel lonely every week, right? That is like a pretty stark number, I think. When we look at the difference in our social engagements in 2003 to 2020, right? The number that's probably, the most stark is thinking about your social engagement time with friends. So where in 2023, we would spend 60 minutes with people, and now it's down to 20, if you think about social engagement with others, it was 54 minutes and now it's down to 30. And we just know that that is really impactful. What we also know is that there are recommendations for how to address this. And one of the pillars, there are 6 pillars that were identified. And one of the pillars is to cultivate a culture of connection. I might have made this the first pillar, but uh, but I still think it's an important one. And the point here is that there is a 29% increased risk of heart disease if you're not connected. There's a 32% risk of stroke and a 50% risk in older adults for developing dementia. Those are stark numbers that I think, we can have lots of other ways for people to connect, but a simple way would be inviting people to dinner, right? And just creating a culture in which we are saying we want to stay connected. Another piece, and I recommend to you this book. There's so many nuggets in here in Adam Grant's Think Again. But I thought in particular it'd be helpful to highlight this particular point that you'll find if you buy the book, page 165, that hearing an opposing opinion doesn't necessarily motivate you to rethink your own stance. It makes it easier for you to stick to your guns or your gun bans, right? Presenting two extremes isn't the solution. It's actually part of the polarization problem. So I think a lot of our social media, I think a lot of our regular media, I think in many of our conversations where there's often this idea of trying to do things in a binary is actually contributing more to the problem. And so what we want to be able to do is recognize this. Psychologists call this the binary bias, if you want a fancy word for it. I'm a psychologist, so I like this. But what I love here is that we need to know what the antidotes are. And the antidotes is creating a space to see various perspectives on a topic. And that is one of the things that the dinners create an opportunity for people to do, right? We go around and ask everybody to share, what is your story? Everybody gets to do that. And so that's a simple way of just starting to break apart that binary, and not to say that your story is like my story, but that all of our stories matter. And even if it seems a little similar, there's parts that are nuanced and that are important and that we need to know about. So really important pieces as we think about that binary bias. And I think we can start saying that more often and actually calling in and saying, hey, can we get different perspectives? So research has shown us that you can help people soften up to a different idea if you present things written in a way or shared in a way that presents various different perspectives instead of just presenting it as one or the other. Because what people do is that it creates a false choice of either one or the other. And we really want to open that up. All right. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too many things, but I wanted to share one more thing that I think is really important. And I really, again, another book that we've been recommending all year is David Brooks' How to Know a Person. And at the core of his book, he says, right, there's one skill that lies at the heart of any healthy person, family, school, or community, or organization or society. The ability to see someone else deeply and make them feel seen, to accurately know another person, and to let them feel valued, heard, and understood. This is also what we do with the dinners, right? And any other ways in which we bring people in, that people want to be heard and believed. It's not enough to just do one. And so as we are looking for the skills and looking for ways to practice, equity dinners create that opportunity for us, right? You get an opportunity to show up, see people who may or may not look like you, have a conversation if you want to. So that's the cool part about the dinner, right? Like you get to just sit and enjoy and hear stories, and you don't necessarily have to like say anything, but maybe you will. And that's what we want people to know, that there's that opportunity and that space to be able to have those kinds of conversations. So I wanted to note like what they are and what they aren't. So first off, a dinner is not a workshop or a training, right? It's also not meant to be standalone. So we can do them separate, but really it's meant to be connected to other things. And that's, part of the growth and the beauty of it. And it also doesn't need to be complicated. I mean, the best part about a dinner is that, it can happen on a Sunday or a weekday. Like today, we're actually going to have an event later tonight. I've done dinners with sixth graders. They're some of the best dinners that you can have, is to have young people there. They just like tell it how it is, and you need to have that, hear it be said. And they can be potluck. So it can be really simple. You don't have to like have it be catered. So question in the chat, wanted to just find out, anyone here ever hosted a dinner party, just in general? Anybody? Okay. Yeah. Right. Like, I think, well, okay. Anyone here ever attended a dinner party? So I just wanted to make sure that we know, like, this is something we can do. It is not like out of that realm, and it can really be very simple. And so then you might say, well, what makes a dinner party successful, right? I think we all know. What would be some ideas of what makes a dinner party successful? And you can add that in chat, Ernie. All right, empathy, yeah. But just a dinner party, what makes it successful? Care. Food, yeah. Yeah, connection, okay. Someone to check the vibe or create the vibe, okay. Getting people involved, yeah. It might feel that equity seems to be different, but that is actually the opportunity. That's what we're saying, right? That when it really comes down to it, it's about being seen and feeling heard and welcome. So to me, the first thing that makes a dinner successful is having the dinner and then having people show up. Okay. I mean, I'm just being super like concrete, because sometimes we forget that. And we really need to like set the date and have the event, and whoever shows up, even if it's one person, okay, like welcome them in. And if people said they were coming and they didn't, give them a call, right? Make sure they didn't get injured, make sure something didn't happen, on their way to participating, and make sure people know that you cared, that they were going to be there. So I wanted to acknowledge again Terry Johnson and Clarence Wood, who were part of the, basically started the dinners in Chicago. And we're part of the Human Relations Foundation. So I think it's important to know that the Human Relations Foundation of Chicago was created out of a study of racial tensions in the city of Chicago, and that the dinners were just one of their projects, in addition to a lot of different things that happened. And Adria Kitchens and myself had a chance, along with Tony, actually, Etheridge, to visit with Clarence and Terry, before the pandemic, and just really grateful. One of the things that Clarence talked a lot about, that I think is really important, is the role of boards, right? The role of talking with people who are in positions of power, and using the dinners and the other processes to invite people in. So imagine organizations making sure that they do a dinner with their board every year. How cool would that be, right? Just an idea of like the things that we can do. So the model, of course, has been used with hundreds of people all across. And to me, the beauty of it is when you can have a coordinated dinner event like we were able to do back in 2019. But wanted to acknowledge that, we did a series of dinners that were called Dinners with Friends in 2016. 2019, we got to partner with Out of Hand Theater and do the Decatur Dinner event. And many of you might have sort of got connected to us if you're in Atlanta through that event. And then with the pandemic, we transitioned to doing a hybrid model. So Equitable, Cleveland, Drexel, the Glenn Clergy. We've done all kinds of different mechanisms for doing this. And then the picture you see here is actually adding a dinner to the beginning of a conference. So the Faces and Voices Recovery Leadership Summit now has a dinner at the beginning of their conference, which has created like an energy and a connection, because like maybe 500 people come to the conference and only 200 get to do the dinner. And it's just a really wonderful space, as you can see here, where people get to come together and really ground in that we can have these very courageous conversations, and that there's a commitment to talking about equity. So the core pieces here, right? Stories of someone's lived experience is key. Having a host, a facilitator, and a guest, right? All of these things make the dinners what they are. So in 2019, we got to do this piece. Another part that is very helpful with the dinners is actually having some media coverage, right? Like inviting the press in, making sure that you're telling the story. Yay, hero, we can have a movie, all the different things that like might come from that. What we know from the dinners is that it can help us break barriers and build bridges. One of the reasons it does that is because it has a flexible format that is built on stories and not lecture, which allows us to make connections. And you're successful when people show up. Like, how cool is that? Like, not anything else, but like success is based on, did people show up? Yay, great. Actually, that was one of my first questions when I first met Clarence and Terry. I was like, so how are we measuring success? And they're like, did the dinner happen? I was like, okay, that's great. And I really think we need to like open that up and pay attention, because people are busy. And so it means something if they made the commitment, right, to actually show up. So things that we've learned about the dinner, and what I wanted to launch a quick poll with you all as well, is that, people are still often surprised, right? This person here wrote, surprised that even people, white people who chose to participate in this event, were unaware of concepts like code switching, and sometimes we operate in our world as if other people know, and oftentimes they just don't. And so this is a space to be able to share some stories, and be able to, stay connected. So, Tony, do we have our poll? Yes, we do. So here are questions, if you can see it. Who is anxious about the divisions in our country? This is multiple choice, so you can pick more than one, like yes, no, yes, kind of somewhat, and also maybe I'm in denial or I want to be in denial. And the second question is, who here has an idea that they'd really want to share, but maybe they haven't? And I was curious about why you haven't shared your big idea. Like, yeah, but I don't want to be criticized, or haven't shared my big idea because no one's asked, or actually, I've been saying it, but no one's listening to me, or some other reason. All right, we'll give you a little bit more time. And if there is
No, I
any
think we're
other
good.
reason, what's that, Tony?
I think we're good.
Okay, all right, let's share the poll. Okay, so I think these would be great questions to start asking people. Really, I think we need to acknowledge the anxiety, right? Like, and I think there's good reason for people to have anxiety. So I don't want people to be in like trying to push it away. We actually need to find ways to work with it. So thank you for everyone who is acknowledging that you feel some anxiety and might even feel a little bit of like wanting to kind of be in denial of it. Um, and then I love this. Yeah, like overall, I had a sense that maybe like sometimes we don't share because we are concerned about people criticizing our ideas, you know, and that also, there's a lot of ways in which right now our social media has sort of conditioned us to be sensitive to how things can go viral or what might happen, and there's a lot of fear. So we can create, I think, safer spaces for people to have some conversation, which is what I would like to invite you to do next. So we want to have one breakout today, and you don't have to, but love for you to, in this safe space, hopefully, what's a big idea that you've wanted to share? And just each take a minute or two to share what that is. What we do often, so if you have a phone, we're going to give you 7 minutes in the breakout, right? Because we'll have 3 people in there. So we're going to give you each 2 minutes to talk. And I often like people who have short hair to go first. Thank you, Tony. This is really what I'm hoping we can help people understand, that the dinner experience is not a one side, like just one thing. And one of the places that I would start my very first dinner actually ended up being scheduled for the day after 9/11. And it wasn't on purpose. I had the date already, and then 9/11 happened. But it ended up being a really important conversation in space to just talk and share and come together. I was in Connecticut at the time. We could smell what was happening in New York, right? Like we had people we lost that were part of our community at the time. So as we think about dinners and the process, and to your point, my suggestion, my hope, come to a dinner, start with the people because half of the time we haven't heard all of their stories. And then those stories will be the ones that you're able to help share and give them comfort in sharing their stories with others. And as we do that, the key part with so much of our work is that stories change the norms, right? Norms don't follow from, like, we don't set a policy and then have a norm. Policies follow the norms. And if we want to create new norms, we have to start sharing and generating different stories. And like just your little story that you just shared right there was like such a gem for me. And I think for everyone here, because there is that piece. We have to know that these are the experiences that people have had, right? And do have. And that this isn't there are different ways that we can start to engage in the conversation. So my example is like, maybe we need to teach people how to dance instead of being in a race, right? Maybe we need to shift our metaphors and thinking about where we spend our time. And that oftentimes we forget that planting a seed is one thing. We also have to cultivate soil. We also have to harvest. We also have to, there's so many other pieces that go into growth and renewal. So I just to keep offering some of those different things. And then the last part is what I'm sharing right now is practicing the gratitude. The more that we can practice that gratitude in that space and just speak to exactly what your concerns are, right? That very often our culture seems to like take things out of context and, really just get into our feelings, but we are human beings, right? And feelings are really important. So one of the pieces that we talk about, and I teach a lot about from an appreciative stance, is this idea that what we focus on is going to expand. And it's just one of the principles from an appreciative lens. And I've shared in another webinar earlier what appreciative inquiry was. So an idea here is to like take the energy down a little bit and remember it is a party, right? It's a party. And what I think to get started, pick a date and a location. Like pick a date, pick a location. And then as we, here, just I wanted to share a couple of tips for how to manage or how to be in a hard conversation. You can say there's some strong emotions, right? As the facilitator, make sure you have a facilitator there. I think your point, Beverly, right here, like we all have different ideas about change. This is a fill in the blank, but I believe in our ability to make a difference. And what we want is to find a direction and where we can go together. And I think we can all try to do that if we stay in the room together, right? You can fill it in. So I like to give you fill in things, right? So whatever the things are, we all have whatever those things are about the particular topic. And I do all believe, we all believe in, that might be justice, that might be hope, that might be God, that might be, human potential, whatever that is. And we want, right? We came here to find a way to keep moving forward, to do something, to celebrate. And I think we can all try if, and then add that in. And then the last thing is I want to encourage us to be careful or even name when we do the labeling, right? When we say, you're just being reactionary, because what that is doing is creating invisibility, and it's making that hard conversation even harder. So we can name those things and just know that that's a strategy for how to address it. So I wanted to end kind of by getting any questions, comments, any other big ideas that people have shared. And also just to note again, another hugely striking statistic here, if you think in the 90s compared to now, 33% of us had at least 10 or more friends, and now it's down to 13 in terms of our connections. So just ideas, questions. In the background, I think I just got a notice, so we're going to do a little celebration. I'm looking for ideas, but I'm also closing out because we have like 4 minutes left. So in our giveaway, we actually did do this already. And Hero, you want a book, and Beverly, you want a book. So we need you to put your addresses in the chat.
Thank you.
Remember,
Thank
if I
you.
just so you all know, look, like we have so much going on. Continue to, if you haven't been to Foundations with us, if you're looking for the cohort, all of the things, like all of these are starting up. So be in touch with us. And if you're here today, you get to have a little code that we will be sending you so you can get a discount on what we're doing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can hear questions. Hero.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the book.
You're welcome.
So exciting. I have a question about equitable dinners or equity dinners. Do you know if that model has been expanded internationally?
Has it been done internationally before? So I
Yes.
know that there have been dinners done internationally, but I think there's room to do even more. So, and I think from a virtual perspective, like there's some ways we can do more of like the UN model dinners experience. And I think we should definitely do that. So.
Okay, because that's actually the big idea that I shared is to create a community in Japan or people in Japan, since that's where I'm from, and eventually do, this dinner. So
There, let's do, and the goal with, understanding the model, like there's all kinds of, I did not say this earlier, like my goal in sharing about the dinners is that I don't want people to feel or to be in a space of trying to make them so unique and different. That, capitalism has a say, like this is in the all of those things, instead of like generating more ideas. So what I want to invite us to do is to share the inspiration behind things and keep spreading it, instead of feeling like, well, I've got to create a whole new thing, and it has to be different than this. Really the work that I hope we're all thinking about, and this is part of what comes from Clarence and Terry, was just to acknowledge, right, like where the roots are and how simple it can be, and they keep kind of growing that, and not necessarily get into, well, ours is this and this and this and this, but to help it be a generative thing so we can all be part of it, instead of it being like a proprietary kind of thing. So even if it's been done, it should be done again, right? And we need to like advertise. There's a lot of things that have been done that literally like were so long ago, or people are so busy, just we don't get enough movement on the next layer of it. Other questions? We got like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, anything.
I don't necessarily have a question. I just have a gratitude. I think we were introduced maybe like 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. And I think about, yeah, there's no way I'd ever try and host a dinner or be involved in, and then the opportunities that you provided to facilitate, and then these great partnerships. And so it's just just thank you. Thank you for everything, for your wisdom, and you and Tony, and your friendship, and just and encouragement. And I just wrote, Beverly, I also want to thank you for the courage for what you shared, and just so grateful to everyone that is. I'm going to turn 62 in August, and grateful for folks who have given me a vocabulary to be able to speak to these things, because when I was younger, I didn't have one. So thank you.
You are so welcome. So welcome. I'm sure there's not a whole lot people want to say after that, other than we continue. But thank you, gratitude. We're here. The cohorts are going to be starting back up in August. We have a special one if you are looking to do this in a compressed way. We will be running a special cohort for the race equity groups on Fridays, like the last 3 Fridays in August. So it'd be like 2.5 hours, but it's a great way to do that. But if you're available to do the longer one, that'll start up on August 21st. So reach out. We're looking forward to continuing to support you all and having these very brave conversations. And I think especially right now, because the anxiety is real. And we need to have a space to just be real, to talk about what is true, and also move into the things that are good and possible. So thank you to everybody that's here and anybody who gets to watch this later. Let's reach out. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.